but a forum where we ask a question, and every candidate has 2 minutes to each answer that question, and of course, well into the substance of the matter. We will start with the environment, and then we'll go into another pressing issue, especially in our city here, mental health and addictions, for the second hour. Dr. Barreto here is volunteered to be our timekeeper, so he'll keep everybody in check for 2 minutes, so that we can actually go through all 6 questions, if possible. And I think I didn't forget anything, did I? I forgot to, last but not least, thank my team who put this together, especially Michelle, who in very short notice was able to organize all of this. She's awesome. And yeah, so thank you so much. And we'll start with the first question. Any questions first? Yes?
There was a mention of opening and closing remarks. Is that not
That's
happening?
right, it is.
There
See,
are?
I had forgotten something.
And how long,
2 minutes.
long is that?
2 minutes
Okay.
as well. So we'll start with the opening remarks. So thanks for reminding me. And oh yes, and it will be completely random. So Michelle has prepared some papers here for me, and they're all up together. But they're post-its. But we'll start with Robert. It's meant to be.
There you go. Tell me when the timers start. It's gone. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And my name is Robert Peace, and I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak here this evening. And one thing that I do enjoy to say to every group that I speak with is that regardless of the differences we may have here up on the stage in policy or in style or form or in things that we may believe or not believe, I think people should appreciate that everyone who runs for a public office, whether it's federal, provincial, municipal, board councillors, trustees, puts themselves forward, makes some sacrifices, and everyone should be commended for doing that. And I think we always have to understand that at the end of the day, we all want to work together and be friends. And I think in the end, we're all fighting for a better city. So I want to make that clear. I'm really excited to be part of this election. I feel there's a great desire for change in the air. At least that's what I'm hearing and feeling about every day. And it's from the youth that I spoke to this morning at St. Basil's Elementary School to the phone call I received from an 89-year-old who is very upset that she had to go to Ottawa to get a cortisone shot tomorrow. And the amount of dialogue and learning from the community has been amazing over the last few months. And for that, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that. And I especially appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to talk about a couple of very important issues. One, environmental issues, and the other one, mental health and substance abuse disorder. Both of which I've spoken at great length, and one of which I've had the opportunity to have a number of years working in the field with the Conservation Authority. So look forward to more tonight.
Thank you. Matthew, please.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Thank you to the School of Life Sciences and Environment here at Algoma U for giving us the opportunity to speak to your students and the community at large about the upcoming election. It's great to be back at Algoma U, which is my alma mater. As many of you may be aware, I recently released my platform, A Plan for Progress, which is available in full at my website, matthewshoemaker.ca. Tonight, we will discuss in depth two issues that the School of Life Sciences and Environment has asked about, the environment and mental health and addictions, both of which are the critical issues of the day. A Plan for Progress discusses those areas in detail, and in it you will find real ideas to drive real change. Ideas that are specific and achievable in our community. It is also my belief that the candidates running for office owe you the specifics about what they plan to do if elected, but very few provide this. Tonight and throughout the campaign, my goal has been to provide those specifics. With a plan for progress, the whole community can see that I've got a plan to create change on the issues that matter most. A plan developed over the course of months of community consultations, not, as some of my fellow candidates may charge, a plan that I've come up with solely on my own initiative without regard for community input. If I'm elected, I will work with councils to start the ball rolling on these initiatives over the course of my term. You will be able to judge my success or failure in 4 years' time based on whether or not I've been able to convince council of the merits of the plan. A plan for progress is about a need for a safe consumption site in our community to help battle the addictions crisis that's gripping our city and hitting our downtown especially hard. On the environment, I detail my plans to double municipal tree planting and electrify the city's fleet of vehicles. And I want to do it all in a way that won't skyrocket your taxes. I've shown my work, I've got the plan, and I'm on your side. On October 24th, I hope to earn your vote for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna?
Thank you. I'm wondering. In my opinion, the environment and mental health and addictions are, along with economic growth, the most important issues in this upcoming election. On the environment, I consider myself to be a progressive environmental candidate. I brought forward the motion for a bylaw to ban single-use plastics in the Sault, which has resulted in that happening in full force shortly as the bylaw comes into place soon. I advocated for, and I was able to gain the support of my council colleagues for finally having the funding of a permanent environmental coordinator, a permanent position at the city, something that has never existed before. I have been the chair of the city's Environmental Sustainability Committee since its inception 2 years ago, and I'm very proud of the work this group has done to act on our greenhouse gas emissions plan. I worked with Sault Trails Advocacy Committee for 20 years, and I was chair for over 10, working to build and expand our John Rosewell Hubs Trail and additional pedestrian and cycling facilities to encourage active transportation. And in my day-to-day choices, I personally make environmentally progressive ones. We must prioritize our efforts and actions as a municipality to set and achieve meaningful goals and provide the necessary financial or other resources to do so. A growing incidence of mental health and addictions illnesses is not only negatively impacting people's lives, it's resulting in the highest levels of self-harm and suicide in history. We know that Algoma's death rate due to opioid use is more than double Ontario's rate. Mental illness and addictions and hospitalizations in Algoma are 200% higher than other parts of Ontario. Hospitalization rates for addictions or mental health illness in Algoma are 3 times the Ontario average. Between 23 and 67% of homeless people report having a mental illness. We have a crisis, and we need a strategy to move it forward. If elected as mayor on day 1, I will take this action. I will write letters and make calls to Michael Tobolo, Steve Clark, to the Premier and our MPP, Ross Romano, and ask once again for an emergency meeting with them to discuss chronic homelessness, mental health, safety, and addictions, and create a strategy and provide the resources our community needs.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you. Logan?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. Thank you to the School of Life Sciences and the Environment for putting this on tonight. I'll be brief. I decided to run for mayor, for the mayor's office out of sense of urgency. I wasn't hearing what I needed to hear, only the recklessness of not doing enough. I had to ask myself, how should a community leader act when our world is on fire? When there is consensus that we desperately need to address climate change right away? What should a leader focus on when too many of their citizens can't afford a decent home, are homeless, are sick, dying in the streets? I thought a leader should demand more. They should demand more from themselves. They should strive to be the change they want to see, make fiercely advocating for the community's needs a top priority, and not shy away from taking on the difficult problems. And they should ask for the help of the community to collectively tackle these major problems, because we're all in this together. I think it's important to understand a person's motivation to seek public office, so I'll share mine. I'm a father and I'm worried about my children's future. We're all our futures. So I choose to be a climate activist. I also choose to work in social services, to help people. I work every day to help people in poverty, to make their lives better with the limited tools at my disposal. I see the tragic outcomes of the addictions epidemic, the lack of affordable housing and homelessness. I see the devastating impacts up close, and I know we have a moral and ethical obligation to tackle these crises. This is where I come from, and it is this experience, this rooted understanding that moved me to run for mayor, and that will motivate me to stay focused until we're heading in the right direction. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Ozzy, please go ahead.
I welcome and thank you for holding this event. I'm the proud father of two boys who are now 28 and 19. I've been with my wife Cindy for 28 years, and most of you are probably wondering, okay, there it is. Most of you are probably wondering how she put up with me for that long. I'm an entrepreneur and have a construction business for approximately 25 years. I'm an avid cyclist that plays softball, and I enjoy spending time on a hub trail and the waterfront. That's when I see everything that I love about Sault Ste. Marie. But also when I see and get reminded of the things that need our immediate attention, such as crime, the homelessness, and drug issues, and the failing roadways and other infrastructure. People always ask, why did you decide to run for mayor? I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, raised my family here, and believe it has amazing potential. I know we can make it one of the healthiest, most equitable, and sustainable cities in Canada that provides affordable, high quality of life for everyone. However, over the past 8 years, the city has become less equitable, less sustainable. The city is falling apart, and leadership is standing by and watching. I strongly feel that we cannot continue in this direction, and we are in a critical time for change. Sault Ste. Marie requires a leader with bold vision for the future, someone who has the courage to fight for the city and all its residents. And I'm the one that has the passion and motivation to lead the change. We need to think differently, more equitably, more inclusively, and more responsibly. I know it is possible to have a responsible, transparent, and accountable municipal government that works for the people. I want to get us back to the basics and focus on the municipal government's responsibilities, such as providing decent, affordable services to its citizens, keeping them safe, and ensuring that our facilities are adequate, accessible, and clean. I will engage with the people of this city and hear their ideas on how to get us back to the basics. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and for our first question, I think I can speak loud enough. We have it over there as well. And the first candidate to answer will be Matthew. So Matthew, as mayor, will you actively be advocating to change municipal policies and procedures to tangibly reach greenhouse gas emission targets? And if so, how?
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. I think that there's a good record on this already, and one that I plan to continue on advocating for if I'm elected. So specifically, I brought a motion late last year to have the city investigate electrifying its small engine equipment. So this would be items like lawnmowers and weed eaters and chainsaws and all the other equipment that our public works department uses, and then with the goal being of getting to buses and vehicles as well. As we replace them. But to do this, we need to compare the upfront cost, which might be a bit higher, with the cost that it takes to maintain the vehicle and pay for the gas over the lifetime of the vehicle. So the electrification of our fleet of vehicles and small engine equipment, I think, is one way that the city can have a real impact on greenhouse gas emissions. A lot of the greenhouse gas emissions in our community are outside of the municipality's control, but that is a real way that we can have an impact on the city's emissions itself. In addition to that, I was part of the council, I believe Councilor Hilsinger is part of this council as well, that converted all of our streetlights to LEDs. Those are real benefits to conservation and use less power. to eliminate them. So those are things that are within the municipality's wheelhouse that we've been able to do and that we can still work on doing to have a positive impact on reduction of GHGs. In addition to that, I have in my platform thank you, I was just looking at that, a plan to double our municipal tree planting. We have, since 2014, already doubled our tree planting. It went from about 150 a year, 150 trees a year to 300 a year. I want to see it double again to 600 a year. And I believe that that'll have a positive impact on our clean air. Thank you.
Thank you. Tobin?
So in short, absolutely. So one of the main reasons I'm running is to reduce our greenhouse gases and tackle climate change. I think our targets are tragically low compared to other ambitious Ontario cities, I have to say. And I do need to point out, and I can't overemphasize enough, that there's an importance to a leader leading by example. I've committed to zero transportation emissions on city business, and I challenge the rest of the council to do the same. I would be an advocate for sustainability, talking about climate-friendly diet, limiting consumption, talk about it at public events in schools wherever I can, with whoever would listen. Most experts agree community engagement is key. How do you engage a community? You walk the walk. There are lots of practical things we can do. I've got a long list, and I've got a good amount of time left, so that's good. We need to get more people on transit. We do that by improving transit. Individual car use has to be reduced. How do we do that? We offer a viable alternative. Right now, I wouldn't say our transportation system is up to the task, but we can do better. Many two-car families that I know pay more for their car payments and mortgages, and this just shouldn't be as tight as money is. And there's lots of institutional changes we can make. We need to do less frivolous building. Every time you start an excavator, there's greenhouse gas emissions. So we have to be targeted in what we build. We should look to refurbishment wherever possible, and we should be smart about it. We need to usher in municipal composting. We need to ensure, this goes along with tree planting, maximize our green spaces' potential for carbon capture. We need to connect small businesses with greening resources like we think green. And with building permits, I think we can build in carbon capture and reductions as incentives into the permits. And really, we need to, I know this has been done, but it needs to be done further. We need to examine every city operation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Donna?
Are we okay without a microphone? Maybe possibly, is that a thumbs up back there? Thank you. That's awesome. Is that okay with you?
For video?
Is that okay? Are you sure?
I'm okay.
No,
All right.
no, I'd be having term.
Okay, all right, I'm happy.
Yes.
Absolutely.
My platform is very clear that we not only need to reach current targets for our greenhouse gas emission plan, but we need to shorten this current timeline and achieve net zero by 2040. That's a 10-year reduction. How are some of the ways that we can do this? We can prioritize and accelerate the city's conversion to electric or alternative fuel buses and municipal vehicles and other municipal equipment. We can continue to broaden the restrictions on single-use plastics. We can implement our community waste management strategy, which is upcoming in the next few months. We can prioritize the retrofit of municipal buildings for energy efficiency. We can reinvest the savings from those retrofits in the further emissions reduction programs, either for the municipality or make those funds available to other community initiatives. We can promote green building. We can work to implement car share, and we can work to significantly increase transit ridership with more efficient, more effective, more convenient transit system. Thanks.
Thank you, Donna. Ozzy, please.
Thank you. This is important. It needs to be a consideration in all municipal municipal decisions. We look at doing this through trying to be carbon neutral. We can do that by planting more trees, natural gardens, prioritizing green building materials, and methods for new or renovated structures during the permit applications and approvals. Monitoring city vehicles gas usage as well. I would also like to identify areas where the city can reduce energy consumption, such as having more energy efficient lights and equipment, educating staff to conserve energy through everyday activities, such as using minimal lighting, carpooling to work, or riding bicycles. I also think that we need to continue the transition of the city's fleet to more electric or hybrid vehicles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Robert, please go ahead.
All right, thank you. According to the David Suzuki climate team, the science is clear. If we want to avoid the worst effects of a heating world, we have to curb our greenhouse gas emissions in a big way, and we have to do it now. And I think my colleague Tobin has been speaking that quite clearly to the public over the last number of months. Over the past few years, municipalities throughout the country have been taking matters into their own hands and acting on climate change. In many ways, they are our greatest hope for curbing emissions. We don't have to wait for federal or provincial governments to do something. In Canada, municipalities can legislate solutions that affect about 50% of our national emissions. And with about 80% of Canadians living in municipalities, it's important, even crucial, that we focus on their potential to help resolve the climate change. Fleet vehicles account for 56% of this city's greenhouse gas emissions, as reported in the city's greenhouse gas inventory last March. Are we selling, though, our old vehicles? Because if we sell our diesel and our gas vehicles to someone else and buy electric, are we actually accomplishing anything? Something I'd like to challenge the city and to know more about. I also read in 2017 that we were talking about electrifying fleets, getting more things electrified. At this moment, I have not been able to get a clear number on how many vehicles or buses we have that have been electrified. There's a lot of talk about it for many years, but we need more than talk. Governments can encourage and in some cases force action with regulations and bylaws, but beyond recognizing climate change, our youth also changing their behavior. And although polls have shown the environment is a priority for youth, the question is, are you doing your part? Are we all doing our part?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. For our next question, Sault Ste. Marie has been prioritizing the tourism industry in recent years. Do you consider this to be compatible with continuing to attract heavy industrial investments? And the first one to answer is Tobin.
Thank you. Okay, so with the exception of investments that do some good, like the Algoma's electric arc furnace that will reduce carbon emissions, probably improve air quality, absolutely not, no. Our city and our ecosystems have enough industrial pollutants to contend with already. Unless we want to become, and I say this sort of cheekily, unless we want to become a disaster tourist destination, I would suggest no. I'm unequivocally against the ferrochrome smelter. If we had the option for digging up asbestos under our feet, I'd say no to that too. The whole notion is absurd. Thank you.
Thank you. Awazi, please.
I believe that the current goal is supporting our existing heavy industry as it encourages them to transition to greener technologies. While we also work with them to suggest improvements that help reduce the environmental footprint. We can also attract and develop light manufacturing that will complement our current industry and encourage green companies. Looking to provide innovative solutions and support a healthy economy that considers environmental impacts. if this question is related to the building of the ferrochrome smelter, I'm not supportive of it, because I've not seen any data that shows that this would not release carcinogenic pollutants into the river and atmosphere. I also plan on working directly with those who oppose the ferrochrome plant to address their concerns, and will be open about my concerns with the media. I heard the public's concerns since the Sioux was selected and realized that this was something that I couldn't support.
Thank you. Donna?
I've been working in the tourism and hospitality industry since I was a very long time ago. We live in an area that is a gem. It's a gem for the world. And it's a gem for the world to experience because of our geography, because of our history, because of our culture. And we've done a lot to bring that to the world for the last 50 years, perhaps longer. But the potential in tourism and the potential in bringing visitors here to experience our landscape, the place where the Group of Seven painted over 100 years ago, to experience our heritage and our culture is economically for us so much of an opportunity. And I think we should be focusing on investing in product development and other attractions, some of which have been talked about in the last little while, to bring people here to this community because we have something very special to sell. Nobody else has what we have here. And it does compete with industry. And it's so great to see what's happening at Algoma Steel right now. There's a shining example of how industry is going to not affect our environment as much as they did any longer. But it's an opportunity for us to think differently. It's an opportunity for us to think differently about our future and how we can have industry, but we can also have be respectful and treat the environment well, and we can attract visitors. And it's we're going to do things here that, whether I get elected or not, that can't happen anywhere else. Environment is most important. Thanks.
Robert?
Thank you. Sometimes I do like to give the city some credibility, and I will say that I have not seen a plan to push by the municipality to specifically attract heavy industry. The heavy industry here has been shrinking, and the industry that is here has been moving to green themselves, as others have mentioned, even if it has meant a reduction in employment. From what I have seen, the Sioux has been trying to diversify to avoid the ups and downs of the manufacturing cycles in the commodities industry, along with continuing to build the tourism industry, as Donna mentioned, after the pandemic shut it down. I believe the city has collected close to $1 million in additional tax revenue, and tourism numbers were up above 2019. So the tourism has bounced back. There's a long way to go, however, in coordinating it better with the natural resources we have and investing in some infrastructure to help build tourism. A lot of other industries have started to locate here, including the company that I work with, Rolling Pictures, a post-production company that produces and edits films internationally. We have Helena Canada, a solar panel manufacturer. We have PUC, of course, wholly owned by the city. And we have Workiva, the software company, Camera, Village Media. The list goes on of companies that are not manufacturing based, but are service industries or technology based. And of course, we have the OLG, the hospital and educational institutions. One thing I want to say quickly in my time here, we talk about the ferrochrome and how it's completely in contradiction with trying to have environmental tourism. And I do want to mention, and maybe Matthew will change his mind tonight, but he has simply said that we listen to the environmental assessment and what they say. I'm saying here tonight, I don't want to let it to even get to that point.
Matthew, please.
Thank you for the question. So our industry, I would say, our heavy industry predates our tourism industry. And the heavy industrial economic base that we've got is one that I think needs our attention. And we've heard the good progress being made at Algoma Steel tonight from many of the candidates who have applauded the conversion to electric arc furnace, which is great. But there's also another transformation happening at our other major industry, which is Tenaris. So the city put $1 million into the expansion of Tenaris through both our Economic Development Corporation and through the city itself. So those jobs at Tenaris are double the average, double the median income in Sault Ste. Marie, and the office jobs at Tenaris are on average over $100,000 a year. So those types of industries, frankly, drive our economy in town, and they need our attention. And so those are things that we should be supporting when the opportunity comes up to support it. So I support the industry that's here. I support expanding the industry that's here. And with respect to the ferrochrome process, that is a provincial and federal process. And I frankly don't think that there's any hope that the ferrochrome, no, hope's probably the wrong word. I don't think there's any chance that the ferrochrome processing facility will come to the Sault, because I don't think that the company that now owns the mineral deposits has any interest in exploring that business line. And so I frankly don't think the next council will have a decision to make on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Matthew. So for our next question. Sorry? Yeah, oh, okay. So for our next question, the green economy is both essential for sustainable development and an opportunity for municipalities. How can academic institutions and municipalities work together to attract and retain talent interested in living in and contributing to healthy cities? And for the first is Donna.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, the question, how can academic institutions and municipalities work together to attract and retain talent? Like, we have to. There's no choice. We have to, because it's the future, right? It's the future. We need to attract and retain talent, young talent, mature talent, families. That's how we're going to survive, because we need growth. We need to grow our population right now. We want to see more people coming to Sault Ste. Marie. And so we have to figure out how to do this right. And in Sault Ste. Marie, we're fortunate to have both a university and a college, and fine elementary and secondary school institutions, all of which have outstanding environmental programs. And, you know, our community benefits from having these institutions for teaching, for training, and for providing skilled professionals. So, and there's so many examples of how academic institutions are providing resources to our businesses that need that talent, whether it's Algoma Steel or, other companies. My gosh, my own company, we wouldn't be surviving without the talent that's coming out of these institutions, and we have to continue to work together. We have to focus on the environment. We have to invest in the environment with a strategy in place, and achieve our plans much more quickly. Because if we do that, if we can highlight ourselves as a community that is achieving net zero long before others, because 2050 is a very long time away, then that's a unique selling proposition for us. That's a reason for people to want to come to Sault Ste. Marie and be here and build a home here and have a family here. So it's essential. Thanks.
Thank you. Ozzy?
Thank you. We need to create working groups and establish regular communications with the city and academic institutions. These two things are essential and will help us identify and prioritize key issues and ensure that city policies and activities reflect information provided and discussed. I would like to look into programs where students are supported in developing projects that help explore public perceptions of the environment and to encourage the change to greener lifestyle and acceptance of our current climate crisis. I also, to keep our talent here, our young talent is, we need jobs. And I'll use my 19-year-old as an example. He's taking robotics right now in Lake State, second year, just started his second year. I don't think he's getting a job here. He was already told he's gonna be probably Detroit South in the States. Both of my friends' sons, they went to Lake State. He started headhunting them in middle of the third year. Fourth year, they already have jobs in the States. One's in Arkansas, the other one's in New York State. So to keep our young talent here, we have to start looking for different types of industry that will keep them here. Thank you.
Thank you. Monty, please go ahead.
Thanks, Avi. So, Ozzy's right. Our post-secondary institutions do have to work with our industry and with our municipality to become a pipeline of good talent into good paying jobs. And one of the ways that Sault College does that, I was on the Sault College board for 6 years, from 2015 onward, or 14 onward, is we've got working groups set up of industry representatives, college representatives, and community representatives. Now, the city should and could be more involved in that process and ensuring that its interests are represented on those task forces. But what that does is Algoma Steel or Tenaris or Gunferrell Millworks or whoever it is would be part of a task force that says, here's where we see a labor shortage coming in this industry or in this industry or in this industry. And then they can work with the post-secondary institution, in that case, Sault College, to develop the talent pipeline to fill the jobs that are coming down the pipe. So if we can do that specific to, with the university, for example, specific to the reduction of greenhouse gases or the decarbonization of the air, or whatever the case might be, that is something that the city can play a role in. I know that the city puts a representative on the Algoma University board for quite some time this past term and has been the mayor. So that is another one of the ways that the municipality and the post-secondary institutions can align their work to improve whatever it is that needs improving. In this case, environmental research, or in other cases, labor force needs and things of that nature. So it's a good example of what we do and what can be expanded on to tackle the issues of today.
Thank you very much. Robert?
Well, first of all, let me say, I think it's a lot bigger than just the municipality. We have immense local expertise in research. Examples of research collaborators include, that are located here, include scientists from Ontario Forest Research Institute, Natural Resources Canada, Great Lakes Forestry Center, and the Sea Lamprey Control Center, for example. We have existing cooperation with the Great Lakes Fishery Commissions and the Fisheries and Oceans Canada. Examples of academic collaborators include scientists who are professors here at Algoma University, Sault College, and Lakehead University. Moving forwards towards implementation not only has an impact on greenhouse gas emission targets, but also opens up opportunities for the city from a reputational standpoint. And it will encourage people and businesses to relocate to Sault Ste. Marie as people want to live and work in green municipalities. Both the municipality and the academic institutions must develop and implement viable green solutions that are important and functional for the community. Have we moved yet from just teaching about the need to radically change our behavior to participating? I have yet to see this on the scale required. And let me just say that I believe that we have to interact with our institutions. We talk about science, we talk about facts, we talk about knowledge, and sometimes politics gets caught up in buzzwords and promises and ideals that don't relate to those facts. And I think to be able to focus and concentrate on this, it needs full-time attention. And that's where I will bring up the fact that I'm going to be a full-time mayor and not put on the hat at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and say, now I'm going to be mayor, because participating in these kind of forums is going to take somebody on the ground at all times of the day.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to apologize for being distracted by my phone. I have a couple of crises on the go, but they're okay for now. So how can academic institutions and municipalities work together to attract and retain talent interested in living and contributing to healthy cities? I think by starting to work towards healthy cities and sustainable cities in a more wholesome way. I think we're likely to attract more professionals if we demonstrably show and communicate that this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a more sustainable community. I think we're unique in that we have a real opportunity because we haven't got that far. So basically we're starting sort of just out of the starting gates. And that's a real opportunity for innovators. I think we need expertise to inform this essential transition, and academic institutions can continue to build the courses that will reflect and provide the expertise we'll need in the community. We can engage with and fund local initiatives and experts attached to academic institutions to help us along the way. And I think if you look at jurisdictions with a high proportion of innovators, they're usually communities that prioritize people and environment. And I think Michigan's Cool Cities Initiative is a testament to that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. For our fourth question, which is very close to our special mission here at Algoma University. What steps will you take to join forces with Indigenous communities to advance environmental sustainability goals? And Donis Hilsing.
Thanks. I think that we need to ensure that Indigenous people are at all of the tables. And we need to set goals together. Indigenous people have a heart for the water and the air and the land. And the 7 generations principles are very important when we make our decisions, and we should be working together to think about those things. How are the decisions that we make today going to affect 7 generations ahead of us? We can't think in the moment. We have to think about the long term. And so we need to set goals together. We need to ensure that Indigenous people are at all of our tables. We need to ensure we have Indigenous people at our environmental sustainability committee. Thanks.
Thank you. Ozzy, please go ahead.
Indigenous knowledge and culture has been ignored by local governments for a long time. We have a wealth of local resources, and I recognize the importance of traditional knowledge of First Nations to protect the environment. I would also like to have regular communications with them. They will be an integral part of the academic working groups and environmental policies developed by the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Tobin.
First, I want to acknowledge that Indigenous communities and peoples are the only ones who have lived here sustainably. So we have a lot to learn from them. We should engage Indigenous communities and peoples more. I think it's a good thing for the broader community, and that it's the right thing to do. The creation of the Bawating Advisory Circle was a great start. In my platform, I suggested that the rejuvenation of the circle with the possibility of a permanent committee, if the circle sees that as the next logical step, would be a good thing to do. Ideally, I would hope that the advisory committee or advisory circle or new committee that takes its place would want to contribute with and inform environmental sustainability and the environmental sustainability community and our broader city sustainability goals. Sorry. Thank you.
want to say when I first arrived in Sault Ste. Marie, by the way, I drove, flew. I was absolutely captured and mesmerized by the beauty of the Garden River First Nation Reserve. I met the chief there. I met a number of councillors. I began to go out onto the land with members of the community. I later met Dean Sayers, and we continued to have monthly games nights at our office, along with other people from the community. And I learned so much that I took my drone out and started photographing and creating a coffee table book and working with the elders to tell their stories. And it's been such an amazing experience. I think because of the tremendous progress that's already been made here, it's far beyond what's happening elsewhere in Canada. And Sault Ste. Marie is the best location for the spreading of culture, language, and knowledge. Because of the highly developed IT networks in Sault Ste. Marie, all the young people, native and non-native, across Canada and around the world who will be the future leaders will have access to knowledge and the truth we can develop here. The truth starts by having a permanent seat for our Indigenous and Métis neighbors at the table. Batchewana Chief Dean Sayers told me just a few weeks ago that he has never been asked to sit at a municipal table to talk about the environment or mental health and addiction issues. This would change immediately under my leadership. A lot of people have talked about interacting or inviting the participation, but it hasn't happened in years, and it needs to happen to a greater extent. Focus on our people, our expertise, our collaborative approaches and potential, our ability to lead with innovation, our historical diversity, and our rich culture. Indigenous people believe the natural world is sacred, consider themselves as one element of the natural world, and it needs to be whole for future generations. They see themselves as stewards of the land. It's not that they are anti-development, but more that they are pro-environmentally responsible development. And for that, I have their full support.
Thank you. Matthew, please.
Thank you again for the question. The most important aspect of learning from Indigenous teachings is to, as Robert has alluded to, bring them in and have them at the table. Don alluded to it as well. Part of the my platform involves, or includes, I should say, more regular joint council meetings. So nation to nation, if you can put it that way. The municipality is not a nation, but Batchewana First Nation is a nation, Garden River First Nation is a nation. And our municipal government has not had those meetings, which ought to be and should be, if I'm elected, initiated by the mayor. And if I'm elected, I'm committed to initiating those discussions, having those joint council meetings between Garden River First Nation Sioux Council and Batchewana First Nation Sioux Council, as well as on a non-Indigenous track, our American counterparts in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. But I also want to develop the position of elder in residence at City Hall. And this would be someone who could inform our policies, inform our teachings, inform the implementation of our policies with Indigenous teaching, specifically 7th generation outlook on what the city is doing and how the city is implementing it. So those are two ways that I think we can work with our Indigenous neighbors, to improve our community's relationships with them.
Okay, thank you so much. For our next question, we have urban sprawl. And this is quite an academic exercise, I'll warn you. Urban sprawl and infinite population growth is embedded into our culture. Do you think that targets and limits based on evidence-based sustainability goals should be considered? And first, we'll start with COVID.
Thank you. So it's unfortunate, but the car-centric design of our city is pretty much the worst setup sustainability-wise. Absolutely increased density needs to be part of our future planning. The more we can eliminate unnecessary commutes, the better. Our city will get bigger population-wise, though, in all likelihood. All communities in a livable geographic region will see more immigration and likely refugees. And we can't even house our existing population. Home ownership is getting increasingly more expensive. So these are things we have to contend with. So for me, we need to focus on creating more affordable housing for current and future residents because our population will only grow. If we're talking about out of control population growth as a subject, I think the best thing we can do, and this goes beyond our municipality, but maybe we can play a small role is export education and women's rights. Thanks.
Thank you. Ozzy, please.
There are always limits to how much can be supported and how long we can support a population that considers our environment. It is important to understand those limits with real data and studies to create effective policies and planning. I recognize that urban sprawl has a heavy burden on the environment, and we should better utilize the space we have, conserve resources, and accept the limitations within a community. We can do this by better utilizing our current structures that can help meet our housing needs and by building smaller homes. We have a benefit as I feel that smaller communities provide an opportunity for growth without the impacts seen in heavy populated areas like Southern Ontario. Our official plan needs to be updated to reflect the needs of our city so we can ensure that we are using our planning powers to make decisions that do not have negative impacts on the land and that we are protecting and sustaining our resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Donna?
Thanks.
Targets and limits should be considered, in particular as it relates to urban sprawl. I think that it's important for us to have population growth because we need that. We need that to sustain our community. We need that to continue to build our assessment and provide more services and amenities and so on, and be a place that people want to come and live to, and people want to come and live in, and people want to come and visit. However, density is very important, and our new official plan draft does speak to density. It speaks to no urban sprawl or a very, very little change of the city limits. And creating that density and creating neighborhoods within densification areas is important for helping people to be able to live and work and provide for their needs within a space where that limits their need to use vehicles, or that they can access public transit more easily and so on. So very important. Also, density will help us address our housing crisis. Thanks.
Thank you. Robert?
Thank you. Well, the good news is I don't believe infinite population growth is embedded into our culture here in Sault Ste. Marie. I think we'd be happy keeping the number of people we have instead of losing people here. The reality of our demographics, though, is that we have been losing people faster than gaining. If we want to maintain a quality of life at even the current level, we will need to attract new people. We are shrinking faster than we are growing. Recent stats have shown enrollment is up in the schools. I was at St. Basil's today. They're up in their enrollment, and they're even talking, unfortunately, about bringing portables in. But an overall population decrease and an aging tax base is what we're faced with. Intensification can lead to more affordability and more environmentally responsible development, and I fully support that. But we need to grow our younger base. As professionals retire in the forms of doctors, nurses, tradespeople, police, IT professionals, and the list goes on, we need to attract them. This has led us to increase our search beyond our borders and give opportunities to those in other countries looking to settle here. We can and we should calculate what a sustainable population and demographic must be to create an attractable and livable and sustainable society here in Sault Ste. Marie. And I think that's where some academic research could go a long way in helping us achieve an ideal balance of what it is that we need to get that sort of perfect city that we'd like.
Thank you. Matthew.
Thank you for the question, and I'm glad you prefaced it by saying how it was extremely academic, because at first glance, it was concerning to me that there might be some push to sterilize people and not grow our population, because obviously I do not support that, nor do I think any of my fellow candidates that do as well. Tobin is the only one that mentioned it though, and he's right that the way to slow or stop the never-ending growth of the population is to export education and women's rights. So if we can play a role in that, we ought to. But in terms of actually being able to constrain population growth, I don't think there is a constitutional way for us to do it, nor should it be one of our targets. But limiting the growth of the space that the city takes up, I think is a very achievable goal, one that we ought to pursue. I look at a project like the Royal Canadian Legion reconstruction as an ideal project for our community and one that should be exported to other places in town. So the Royal Canadian Legion, prior to its demolition, housed a banquet hall, some office space, and a bar. And after the reconstruction is complete, it will house a banquet hall, some office space, and a bar, plus 107 units. So all on the same piece of property. So that's a real densification of a piece of property already in a commercial area. And it's great to have wide swaths of green space as our university does. I think it gives it an air of what we all envision as a campus. But Algoma U is a perfect example of lots of space underutilized, and so more residences or apartment buildings, because there's already services in the area. The sewers already run under the roads, the water lines are already connected to the buildings. We need to densify the areas we do have that are already serviced rather than expanding on the periphery.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So at this point, I want to ask our guests how they're feeling and if they need a break. Or if you want to keep going. We have another question on the environment, but I want to keep us on track. It's only 2 minutes, so our guests were invited to also provide their answers in writing and to the media afterwards. So I'm going to get us going. Our 6th question had to do with, as a mayor, are you planning to support an active transportation plan? And if so, how? But so we're not going to do that question now, so because it's 8 o'clock and we need to keep going. So do you want to a quick break? Do you want to get going? Okay, let's keep going then. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll start with a very pressing issue here in our community, in the world as well. We're talking to our students, and all these matters are global, big global matters, but usually change comes when we act at the local level. And so this is what we're doing here. So the first question our students asked was, again, one of the most important issues in Sault Ste. Marie's municipal election involves addictions and mental health issues. How can academic institutions and municipalities then best work together to address these issues? And first, I'll call on Toby to start.
Thank you. So how can academic institutions and municipalities best work together to address these issues? The bottom line is both, because it's a broader community issue, both need to communicate about their needs as well as their assets when it comes to addressing this. Both have a role to play in helping each other. Municipalities and academic institutions have a shared responsibility of community engagement. Because both they should synergize to create space for practitioners as they graduate and experts in the field to engage with the broader community. But what best practices are areas and the areas in need within the community. That could mean co-hosting events, creating a roundtable. And municipalities and academic institutions can synergize their advocacy efforts for improved access to services. It's pretty obvious we don't have all of the supports and the healthcare resources that we need. So if we can synergize that advocacy, it might go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you. Ozzy, please go ahead.
Thank you. Many of us have been touched by the opioid crisis, are aware of the toll that addictions are having on our city, and that the toxic drug supply is constant and growing concern. I will be calling on the provincial and federal governments to invest in addictions treatments and looking at the resources the municipality has available to invest in this important issues. All levels of government must provide affordable housing and supervised consumption sites so that we can save lives. We need significant investments in mental health and addictions treatment, as well as more police enforcement to get the drugs off the street. I will work closely with the Police Services Board, which has the governance responsibility over local services, to continue to develop innovative ideas to keep the drugs out of the city, such as monitoring license plates coming in and out of the city.
Okay, thank you. Robert, please.
Well, after a few years here and spending a lot of time on the ground, advocating for people, following people, watching people, speaking to frontline workers who have come to me to share their concerns, I can tell you that more programs and more bureaucracy is not the answer to this crisis. We keep coming up with new ideas that require new funding, that require new administrations. Training people to take care of others takes two forms. Those who work at the level of a trained doctor or a specialist, and those who know how to take care of people on the ground. You don't always need a degree to know how to love and take care of someone. To make a bowl of soup, to teach someone to take care of themselves, or to organize their day. And I've seen this personally. I think we have to reevaluate what is working and what is not. We keep asking for more money to dump into a system that has shown little to no results. And I can tell you that the agencies, the frontline people in those agencies today say, we don't actually need more money. We need to break down the silos and have people talking to each other and understanding what the real problems are. It's a bold step. Municipalities can lead by looking at funding functioning volunteer agencies. Universities and colleges can look at what is most important when delivering programs for people. Municipalities and the mayor specifically can start to play a role, a leadership role, in bringing all agencies and academia together, along with someone who often gets left out, and that's the clients themselves.
Thank you. Donna?
So the question is, how can academic institutions and municipalities best work together? So I think it's the community, it's the city's responsibility to lead a holistic strategy. And there are multiple strategies there's several strategies out there, but I don't feel like we have a holistic strategy that we all can get behind as a community. We need something that comes from the grassroots, and we need to use the strengths of the organization involved in that, which includes the university and the college, to help to create that strategy with data and analysis and bring their strengths to the table. It needs to be coordinated. We need to eliminate the silos, understand the issue, and acknowledge that it requires a coordinated, consistent, deliberate community response. I think we need to engage with other northern communities who are also experiencing the same issues, and other academia within other northern communities can help us work together to solve this crisis, not only for ourselves, but to learn best practice and to understand what's happening in other places and put all of our brains together to take the knowledge, the best practice, the funding and the resources to really, really get this right and help the people that need the help. There's some great things happening, for example, in Timmins. Right now, they're having some success in seeing their death rates drop, and what they've done from mental health and addictions and opioid use. And from what I understand is what they've done is they're working together, and academia and the hospital and the city and so on. People have come together and they've really put 100%. And we're trying really hard here, but I think, we know it's not working. People are dying every day, and they don't have a place to live in many cases, and they're suffering. And so if it's not working, we got to get it right, and we got to come together to do that.
Thank you. Important question. And I think that one of the presentations we had at council earlier this term was informative of how we can be of assistance and what we can do and where we should be pushing so that the municipality and academia can work on a solution to our addictions crisis. This was a presentation by the Northern Ontario School of Medicine, and the proposal was for an Ontario Mental Health and Addictions Research Training Institute. And this would have been, or I think potentially still could be, if we put the bug in the right ears, a campus of the Northern Ontario Medical School here in Sault Ste. Marie, and that's what was being pitched at the time. And it's a partnership, and the presentation was given to us by a partnership at the time, Surrey Hospital, Algoma University, Sault College, the Northern Ontario School of Medicine, and SKG. So the program that the partnership was advocating for was the development of a research program in mental health and addictions, specifically based in our community with, as I understand, what it would have been, with a clinical research area to export this expertise across the country. So we would be the pioneers and the people on the cutting edge of mental health and addictions research. Now, this was February 25th of 2020. So we all know what happened 2 or 3 weeks later. We all ended up locked down, and many of these initiatives, I believe, have fallen off the table and need to be reinvigorated. And this is one in particular that I think we ought to put our the full force of the municipal lobbying prowess behind. If I'm elected, I'm committed to doing that, because I think this could be groundbreaking, not just for our community, but groundbreaking for the issue of mental health and addictions research.
Thank you. So next, mental health and addictions are often associated with social and economic constraints, including discrimination, access to education and training programs, mobility, employment opportunities, and business development. How can the municipality contribute to prevention? Please be specific on what preventative measures you would support. Donna.
Thanks. I think we need to bring services to the people who need them where they are. We certainly need to address affordable housing and equitable and accessible transportation. The new youth hub that's going to open downtown is a perfect example of what specific measures I support, where youth are going to have access to services, and the city has already supported the capital costs, if you will, and renovation costs of this facility. But I think we really need to continue to financially support their work on an ongoing basis. It's very important. It's going to be a place for young people to go, where they can find camaraderie, where they can find services like things like education and training, access to education and training programs, employment opportunities, etc. I think we need to, from a preventative perspective, I think we need to take a stronger role in how we can provide things like more sports access to young people, so that economic constraints don't prevent kids from having access to sports, or kids from having access to arts and culture. It's really important. We need access to food. Harvest Algoma is doing a great job in helping to provide food within our community, so that that particular issue is helped somewhat, and other agencies are working to do that. Affordable and accessible recreation, summer programs for kids. So what we can do for youth, and then what we can do for other folks, and bring them the services that they need so we can help them rise up. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, we've got a community safety and well-being report prepared for the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service Board, which I'm a member, that spoke specifically of the actions needed for the overall goal, which is community safety and well-being. But there's a pillar specific to prevention in the community safety and well-being report, which talks about increased mental health and addictions team staffing in school boards, and mental health and substance use disorder content in the curriculum to enhance early intervention, prevention, education, and services. Now, of course, that is outside of the municipality's control. The curriculum and the staffing levels and where those staffing levels are deployed are provincial issues, but that does not mean that we, as a municipality, can't be the advocates for this pillar of the community safety and well-being report. This is a report that was completed with the input of a number of agencies, including our school board, so reminding them of what the actions that need to be taken to target the prevention pillar of the report is a key element, I think, of actually achieving the goal in it. There's also a goal here to encourage all local institutions and businesses to integrate naloxone into their first aid policies and harm reduction training. That is, I've taken this recommendation and put a plank of it in my platform to have a community day of action on naloxone training for the community for all of our high school students, as well as a day of awareness as part of that to discuss and make clear to everybody who attends and our students, hopefully we can get them there as well, our high school students, the impact of drug use on our community, on families in our community, on death rate, and what that does to our city. So those are two things in our community safety and well-being report that I think we can take action on, or we can encourage action on, and that I'm committed to doing it collectively.
Thank you. Robert?
Well, the chance of suffering mental health and addiction are often the results of trauma or critical or sensitive periods for brain development. The development of children who do not receive the nutrition and stimulation necessary for development in the early months and years will be significantly impeded. During this time, significant and repeated stressful events, for example, child abuse, can affect neural development and the development of other body systems, for example, immune systems. This system response to stress can impact upon the stress response for the rest of their lives. Hence the association between child abuse and later substance abuse. Investment in early child development have found to have cost-effective outcomes across multiple domains for the individuals and the broader society. The municipality should be investing in schools big time in this area, especially when we have parents with mental health and addictions raising children in our community. Something that it didn't shock me, but it upset me, and I have to follow up with it this evening. Today, a young boy stood up, was trying to get his question to me before I really had said more than a couple of sentences. And I took his question early, and he said, "What are you going to do about drug abuse? What are you going to do about drugs and guns?" I said, well, let's talk about that a little bit later because it's a big subject I want to breach. Later, that same boy stood up very eagerly again, and he said, my mom's on drugs. My dad's on drugs. We have guns in the house. I'm fed up with it. I want you to do something about it. Now, this is the child who's being the parent at the moment. I don't know, maybe 10, 11 years old. And this is the child that we have to get to today. And we better understand today, because in a few years, that's going to be the child we're talking about lying on the street dead. So, you know, we know what the problems are sometimes.
Ozzy?
We need to educate ourselves and others more about mental illness, including substance use disorders. We can constantly reinforce the facts and focus on positive attitudes and challenge myths and stereotypes that are all out there. Our attitudes and behaviors are often judgmental. We need to be aware of this and understand that everyone has faced different challenges and they don't need to be stereotyped. All community groups need to be at the same table, talking and developing a plan that works together. By bringing our community groups together, we can improve our services and better support people. People always need to remember to treat everyone with dignity and respect, offer and encouragement. We need to allocate more resources in different areas of the city, such as police services, addiction, and mental health resources. I'm committed to spending municipal dollars on the parts of the system that the city is responsible for funding. And I'm committed to advocating for the provincial and federal governments to properly fund the elements of the system that we are responsible for. Thank you.
Thank you. So to me, it's plainly obvious that Canada and the province have underfunded, not fully supported the social determinants of health. And now the municipalities are on the front line and we're dealing with it. So because we're now dealing with the poor mental health and addictions outcome, and there obviously aren't adequate health supports available, at least in the near term, municipalities should support the social determinants of health as much as possible. So we could do things like working toward creating more adequate and supportive housing as much as possible, ensure transit is improved to address transportation and service access and address transportation inequities, create space for youth service providers to synergize and create accessible programming to address youth mental health needs. And I think the new youth center is a good example. We need to create space for conversation with employers around working with people with disabilities to solve our labor shortage and address employment inequity. I think there's a lot that can be done. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So now that we talked about prevention, next question on rapid response. Okay? So next to prevention comes rapid response. Would you consider allocating funding for better data and surveillance to facilitate a more rapid response? And this is a broader question, a rapid response to think more broadly about epidemics. So the question is funding for better data and surveillance to facilitate a more rapid response to emerging epidemics. Ozzy, please go ahead.
I thought you forgot about us at this end of the table to start. I believe that the educational facilities and science organizations should prioritize in this and offer programs that train our youth to understand emerging epidemics. I am supportive of the work that the Innovation Center has done and continues to do so. By using big data, GIS, and various software solutions. Their Acorn Information Solutions program is a good example of how data can support stronger and smarter communities. Through this program, they partner with our health and social agencies to improve public safety and improve quality of life. We need to continue to use our community network of educational facilities and businesses to understand emerging issues so we can be prepared.
I guess I probably should have called ahead and asked a little more clarification because I found the wording of this question a bit ambiguous. What rapid response you were talking about, ambulance response, response to addiction stats, response to homelessness, response to mental health, what epidemics are you talking about? COVID, addiction, mental health, homelessness, poverty. There's many epidemics going on. The data I've seen given by Algoma Health, medical, personal, United Way for many years around the health conditions in Sault Ste. Marie concerning drugs, alcohol, mental health, homelessness, heart conditions, cancer, long-term care needs, hospital emergency wait times, time that ambulance personnel had to stay with patients at the hospital was made extremely clear. And that data is very helpful. And the difficulty has and remains to be that agencies here work in silos. They, until very recently, have just said, we need more money from the government. What they have started to realize is that waiting for government assistance is not an option. Actually, it's a cop-out that's costing lives. If the silos are breaking down and the resources and expertise are shared, a lot more can be accomplished.
There we go.
It's green. So I definitely would support allocating funding for better data and surveillance because we can't effectively respond to any situation, particularly an emerging crisis, if we don't understand what we're dealing with and if we're just relying on assumptions. So where tracking and collection of data is possible, we should do what we can and make those investments for consistent collection of data and surveillance so that we can ensure our response to anything is formed by that data. And then we can invest in solutions that are reflective of need, a reflection of the population we're serving, and decisions that are based on data. Very important. Thanks.
Thank you. I think probably more important than having funding probably more important than funding research into the data of an existing epidemic or pandemic is to have the nimbleness to fund research on the next emerging thing. So I don't think any of us would have guessed 3 years ago or during the last municipal campaign that we'd be sitting here talking about how the municipality examined our sewage data to determine our COVID rates. It just wasn't something that we had to do, but the Algoma Public Health specifically was nimble enough to undertake that at the beginning of the pandemic because it became obvious that that was a good way to monitor COVID rates in our community. So being nimble enough with funding to put funding into the next research area of the next epidemic or of the next pandemic, God forbid there ever is one, again, I think is more important than having money into researching the existing one because we know what the existing one is going to tell us and we should continue to maintain that funding to see if COVID rates are going up or down, what the risk is to our community, but we should also not lose sight of the fact that we don't know what we're going to have to test next. We don't know what we're going to have to monitor next, so we should make sure that we are have the ability to do it when it arises.
Thank you.
I think in theory, it's a good idea. However, because municipal dollars are quite limited, it would have to be something that's considered very carefully. Such an undertaking would have to show significant promise of yielding service efficiencies, service improvements and savings to justify the expense. I think it would be hard to justify that expenditure to those suffering with inadequate housing and addictions without such assurances. That said, I think it's an excellent opportunity for collaboration, like what we see with the Rural Agricultural Innovation Network. Perhaps if there was investment from the province, the feds, and the city, and some grants, I think it would be an excellent project that the city should support. Thank you.
All right, going to question 4. So our downtown core and some of the surrounding areas, such as the old hospital site, currently have bad reputation associated with drug use and lack of safety. The downtown core is typically the pride and joy of both cities, a central and safe place for gathering and celebration. What are your plans to continue to change downtown towards those goals? And first, Ozzy.
I thought you were gonna say Matthew.
I'm gonna win the lottery tonight. Over the past several years, the city of Sault Ste. Marie has allowed property standards to fall below acceptable levels in many neighborhoods of our city, particularly in the downtown. I will make enforcement of our current property standards a high priority to regain community pride and confidence in our neighborhoods. I would schedule a monthly and public report from the bylaw standards officer tracking the delinquent properties, noting how long correction orders have been pending, and charting the progress or lack thereof of each property. This would keep all councilors and the public updated, and put pressure on those involved to get results. Many properties like the St. Veronica's School, which caught fire again about a month ago, the old hospitals, all too many boarded up, vacant, otherwise derelict properties in our city need to be immediately addressed by the city and brought up to acceptable standards in a timely manner. Provincial and municipal laws must be taken to have these properties forfeited to the municipality for rehabilitation or demolition and subsequently made available for badly needed affordable housing. I will commit to investigating a vacant home tax, similar to what the city of Windsor has put in place. This program is aimed at speculators who are sitting on properties vacant for more than 90 days and holding them in hopes that the values go up so they can resell them to make a quick profit without any repairs or improvement. I propose that we subcontract multiple local security companies to be the eyes of the police on a much broader scale. These firms can assist and back up homeowners and business people in a time of need until the police arrive. This cost-effective plan would bring greater security efficiencies and allow police to perform their duties with greater precision. I propose that a community action network be struck and invite all citizens that want to work the problem to actively participate to develop local workable solutions. A good starting point would be to review existing methods already in place, such as Alberta's Safer Communities and Neighborhoods program. So a little bit about us, my family. We bought a home near downtown, specifically because we want to enjoy it, being near the downtown and still enjoy the amenities. That said, I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record because I believe that having a focus on climate change, which includes transit improvements, active transport investment, and space use improvements, as well as making affordable and accessible housing and health services to address addiction. That needs to be our primary focus. The community is made up of people. I think focusing on these things is an investment in improving the viability of the health of downtown. I mean, ultimately, what we see as hindrances to our progress are the suffering and the crime related to that suffering, so we need to address those things. Matthew hinted or touched on an important point. We need to support community groups and the police in their pursuit of community safety and wellness funding and planning. And we need to remember our Maslow, health and safety need to come first. Thanks.
Robert?
Well, I've had the pleasure of living at the corner of Queen and Spring for the last couple of years, and I think the downtown gets a worse rap than it deserves. I can tell you the first thing I would do is rename this terribly named Downtown Plaza to be a downtown square. I think the concept is excellent. I think it is needed for people who are coming to this city that don't have camps, that don't have ATVs, that don't have boats. We need more, and this is what I'm hearing from parents of those new families that are coming and working in the service industries, hardworking people that don't have the dollars to do some of the fancier things. I think it was the most poorly marketed and communicated project I've ever seen in my life, but I stand behind trying to make it a success because I think we need it. We have to make it work for people. And, you know, if you come downtown, you'll see the patios, the live music is returning, more street closures and simple events like that of the Halloween party, the Rotary Fest, the Poutine Fest and markets, buskers. Streetlight will make things happen. We have a changing demographic in the city, as I mentioned, one that needs more inexpensive family fun. People watching, walking, biking, skating are all part of the mix, and take the cars away and make it for people. The other thing we could do, of course, is we can buy the over 100 houses for sale in the core, and let's take back our city. We don't have to sit and just complain about developers from the south coming in and stealing our properties. They're buying them. We have wealth in Sault Ste. Marie too. Maybe the city and our private investment community can get together, buy those houses, and get a program together to reinvigorate housing in the downtown core that's part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think many of the candidates up here have touched on it, but I'm not sure that they've said it directly. What we need is more people living in the downtown core. And so doing things, I mentioned the Legion building previously, doing things like that in areas where there is underutilized land in and around the downtown area, I think presents the greatest opportunity to bring people downtown, to reinvigorate our downtown to what we all want it to be. And I actually think Robert's right. The downtown gets a worse rap than the reality of downtown. I think there are things going down. I do think it's a very long area over which things are happening. So that sometimes makes it feel like there's nothing going on if you're in the east or the west end of the downtown. But more downtown street closures is something that I've advocated for over a number of years and have had some difficulty convincing the Downtown Association to get on board with. But I do think that it is one of the ways that we can bring more people downtown. And I think that there is, at the very least, a perception of a lack of safety downtown. And that's why I've proposed bringing a downtown precinct or police station to the area so that there can be the feeling of safety for people in the community who might not otherwise go downtown. And I think having that downtown police presence will assist in the rejuvenation of our downtown. With respect to the old hospital, the Paul Tower, and a number of other buildings that I know we can all name, anytime the municipality has the opportunity to use leverage, and that's not very often, but anytime we have the opportunity to use leverage to get these properties brought up to standard, we should exert that leverage. We just recently had the folks who own the Paul Tower come to City Council and ask for an approval for a battery storage unit to be built on site. And my position was, we should not support that project until we saw real progress on the property standards of the Paul Tower, and that would be my position going forward with many of these other buildings.
Thank you, John.
So at the same time that we have to band together to support our most vulnerable residents, with regards to buildings that fall into disrepair, like the old hospital site and other properties around, some that are owned by faceless numbered companies, I support a plan for zero tolerance for serious bylaw contraventions. We need to speed up, and that's zero. We need to, there's a saying I've heard recently, it's the price of excellence is eternal vigilance. The price of excellence is eternal vigilance. That means zero tolerance for serious bylaw contraventions. And we need to speed up our process to reduce our numbers of complaints. We've come a long way in the last 4 years. There's no question about that. We've made some steps to enhance bylaw enforcement. We actually have 2.5 bylaw officers now, whereas at the start of this last council term, we had 1. Where many other communities have 5 or 10 or 15 in Northern Ontario. So we're suffering from a lack of resources, but certainly, I also sat on and chaired the Police Service Board for 2 years, back in 2017 and 18. And law enforcement's a piece of the puzzle here when it comes to creating a downtown that feels safe for residents and businesses. But more importantly than that is more mental health and housing supports. And if I'm elected, I'll take my seat on the Police Services Board, and in that capacity, I'll support more community policing, better preventative social services, and initiatives to ensure that our frontline officers are available where we need them. We need a community improvement plan, and we need to remember, infill creates safety. So we need more things happening downtown. We need more residents moving downtown. We need to attract residents to move downtown. That community improvement plan can help with both residents and businesses. We want businesses to choose to locate downtown because infill creates safety. So at the same time as we bring people in, we have to support our local residents.
Okay, so next, again, one question that is close to Algoma University's special mission. For centuries, Indigenous peoples have faced and continue to face colonial oppression with serious traumatic consequences. What steps will you take to continue to build an inclusive, equitable, and diverse municipality where traditionally marginalized groups can feel safe, proud of their heritage, and that their voices are heard? If you could be specific, what our students would appreciate. So first, Matthew.
I knew I'd win that lottery sooner or later. So I think the most important aspect of this question is that whichever path we ultimately choose to go down, it needs to be based on a consultative approach. So we need to consult with our Indigenous communities, determine what actions the municipality should and could be taking to be inclusive, and take those actions and take them aggressively or proudly in a way that is based on the support and the buy-in of our Indigenous neighbors. So I've got a proposal and elder residents in my platform. I think that, again, even that proposal needs to be sussed out with our neighbors like Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, to ensure that whatever actions we take, whatever whatever policy we decide to implement, needs to be based on what our Indigenous neighbors believe is the right approach to incorporating their teachings into our policies and into our practices at City Hall. And so that would be job one, is to listen. Job two is to implement once we know what a community accepted way forward is. Accepted way forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I think efforts have to be made and leadership needs to be demonstrated. I think the mayor should continue to make it a point to liaise with historically marginalized groups and openly talk about those discussions. Community inclusion committee could be created with community reps. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the Volunteering Advisory Circle. So it was created a few years ago, and the intentions were good. It was at the time when the GRC's calls for action have just come out, and also calls for the adoption of UNDRIP. So I think by renewing this circle and empowering it to chart the way forward is the next step. Because it's already in place, we should likely include the creation of a permanent committee to do the necessary work that has started. And we're not alone. Many communities have such partnerships in place. I'm trying to think of a community that's gone a long way out northwestern Ontario, but the name escapes me. So there are resources available to inform that path. It's not a new path other communities are doing it. The work of the Accessibility Advisory Committee should continue its work, but perhaps there's a need to expand the definition of what accessibility is in doing their work. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert?
So I was happy to see that the question not only talks of our Indigenous people who have faced the oppression, but also the risk we face as we invite new people into the community and new cultures, and the warning signs that I see coming up sometimes with that. First of all, as far as our Indigenous brothers and sisters and our Métis, let's start by having them sit with us at the municipal table. As I've spoken before, my opponents have often talked about engagement, but have done little to none over the years, those who have sat on council. We're hearing today, after many years, that this would be a great idea. Let's work on collaborative business ventures where they lead, not us always leading. Let's give our brothers and sisters a platform in their city to teach us all, including visitors, not only on their reserve lands, but on our main streets. Let's continue to bring their art and their music and showcase it where we can. Let's celebrate their heritage and learn more each day. And very important, as I mentioned, as we welcome many new cultures and citizens to our city, let's make sure we don't continue the mistakes of past generations by putting up barriers to them for being involved in the community or even politics. Gone should be the days of, you can't expect to come here and speak about our community. Or something I heard the other night, what is your address and how long have you lived here? These are the words that I myself have experienced by a current councillor. And it has to stop, as it has no place in our society. Not quite as violent. One of my opponents here let it be known that he has been on council for 8 years, 4 times longer than Mr. Peace has lived here in Sault Ste. Marie, as if that was somehow suggesting that his time here makes him superior to my time here. Let's bring more people to the table, especially our Indigenous partners, who are the only people who can legitimately speak about being the first, and break up the old boys club that has kept others down.
I think we have to embrace the importance of truth telling. We have to understand the truth of what happened with our Indigenous people and in the residential school system, and understand the ongoing impact that that has had in our Indigenous communities. And you know, as a city, we've recognized groups like the Children of Shaylock, and we need to continue to support them because the work that they're doing is rooted in simply telling the truth, and it's crucial to healing in their communities, and that healing isn't possible without the truth. Shirley Horn, elder and residential school survivor, said to me, I'm really proud of you because you seek advice from an elder to help you understand the pathway forward, and that meant a lot to me. And I believe that everyone in our community needs to understand and embrace that truth. That's why I think that all members of city council and all city staff should receive mandatory anti-bias and anti-racist and cross-cultural training. And this is in keeping with the call to action number 57 from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which calls for all governments, including municipal, to educate public servants on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history and legacy of residential schools and United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, treaties and Aboriginal rights, Indigenous law, and Aboriginal Crown relations. And we also need to understand that this city is now welcoming people from over 75 countries from around the world. And we need to work with our Indigenous people, but also groups like and bring them to the table. The a panel, the African Canadian Association of Northern Ontario, the NOLA, the Northern Ontario Latin Hispanic Association, and our growing local South Asian community and others. And we need to tear down those biases and not accept racism, education and support things.
Oh, sorry. It's cold in here.
As I said earlier, that Indigenous peoples have been ignored by local governments for a long time. I will engage and listen to our Indigenous people and invite them to participate in community roundtable meetings. I will institute bi-weekly or monthly meetings with the mayor and encourage our Indigenous population to reach out to me and take advantage of my open door policy.
So we have one last question, but again, there's 10 minutes left before 1 o'clock. Our last question could be answered if you want in writing. The opioid crisis is at the forefront of concerns for families, considering what the city has done thus far to eliminate the use of illicit substances. What should be the next steps for the new mayor in addressing this problem? So I'll leave that to your consideration. And so we will end with some closing remarks. For that, and then I will make some closing remarks after that. And to start the closing remarks, Robert, please.
Well, thank you again for this opportunity to speak tonight. There haven't been a lot of forums, especially ones that are broadcast, where a larger audience can hear us speak and hear our views. I want to say that we have an amazing environment here in Sault Ste. Marie. We have amazing people here in Sault Ste. Marie. One of the things that I noticed when I arrived is even during COVID, how doors opened, how the community opened their door and let me in to learn, and especially the Indigenous community here. I can't say enough about what I have learned from them. I've spent the last few years sitting at tables with them, not talking about how I'm going to do it or how we should do it in the future. I've been doing it as an unelected person because I love it and I love to learn every day. And I've learned about the trauma, I've learned about the good, the bad, the ugly. I've learned about what Indigenous folks can bring to our culture and what we can learn from them. I've also been passionately involved with people on the ground, both people suffering from mental health and addictions, something which I've been blessed, never touched my family or myself, but I felt it when I came here to Sault Ste. Marie. I think it's impossible not to. And I've been active in forming groups with a gentleman named Dr. Hergott. When I originally came here, a group called Chat, which was formed not to help on the ground like we had so many volunteer organizations do, but poke the bear above and get some action on something that's been ignored for too long. And what I'd really like to do is take my seat in the mayor's chair and get stuff happening here, not just talking about it. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for being here tonight. It's good to have an opportunity to share my thoughts. I'm sure for all of us to share our thoughts and tell you about our plans. On the environment, our net zero target should be shortened by 10 years to be in effect by 2040, period, end of discussion. We got to figure out how to do that. I'd like to see us do things like expand our trail network and our transit system and make it easier and more convenient for active transportation as a choice. I haven't mentioned this yet, but I think we should really enact a tree preservation bylaw so that we protect our trees, plus plant more. Building codes should target net zero. Building retrofits should be prioritized. Preparing our community to reduce our dependency on vehicles and embracing alternative fuels. These are the things that we have to take action on, have a strategy on how we're going to do it. We know we have a mental health and addictions crisis. On day one, if I'm elected mayor, I will write letters to the relevant ministers, to the Premier and to our MPP and ask for that emergency meeting to get them at the table. I will relentlessly advocate on behalf of our community for solutions and make things happen. I will work with others and I will break through the barriers with other people, with people we need to come together to help our most vulnerable residents. I will reach out to bring Northern Ontario mayors together to discuss and share best practices and work together. And we know that supportive housing is a very key part of addressing our mental health and addictions issues. We use the Housing Corporation to improve our housing supply. I want to invest in supportive housing solutions that are community-based, not government-run. I want to leverage and utilize the power and the breadth and the strength of community-based non-governmental organizations. For example, directly support nonprofit organizations and charities so that municipal governments and related municipal entities don't shoulder the burden of management and mortgages. I want to recognize that Sault Ste. Marie has one of the highest proportions of Indigenous people in the province, but our Indigenous people are disproportionately homeless at 68%. We got to start doing things differently, and I'm committed, I'm completely committed to working with others to make that happen. Thanks.
So I think to start, in using my time, I'm going to answer question number 6. As mayor, are you planning to support an active transportation plan? And if so, how? By example, I'm going to do it. I already do it. I have pledged to have 0 transportation emissions while on city business. This is what I'm all about, active leadership. So tonight you've heard diverse opinions about what the crises are, where our focus needs to be. And I applaud my colleagues here for being up here and putting themselves out there and sharing their vision. I have a task for people here and for the larger community. I hope that you'll envision the community that you want to see, the problems that you want solved, and the paths that you want to see taken to get there. From there, I hope you'll decide which candidate most closely aligns with your vision and who you can trust to get you there. And lastly, please vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our city has a long, rich, and proud history with huge potential for the future. I want to be your full-time mayor so we can get back to the basics, get focused on working together, collectively solving the pressing issues in our city as well as those we encounter over the next 4 years. I take the role of being mayor very seriously, and I work with all members of council to ensure that we are all responsible to the needs of our constituents. We need to focus on finding efficiencies and improving services within our municipal government. We also need to ensure that the agencies that receive city funding and who provide provincial programs and services are held accountable to the people of Sault Ste. Marie. I'm a hardworking businessman, like most of you, who works hard for their living and pays taxes and knows that we as a community deserve better and that we have the resources and willingness to see this happen. All the endorsements from former mayors, councillors, and MPs are nice, but the endorsements that I really want are the ones from you, the people of Sault Ste. Marie. I know and I'm confident that as your mayor, I can provide the necessary leadership to get City Hall reopened, to do your business in a welcoming way and focused on getting us back to the basics. Thank you, and I humbly ask for your support on October 24th. One note, the first hour was dedicated to the environment. I don't know if any of you have watched Planet of the Humans by Michael Moore. And if not, go online and check it out. It's a very interesting documentary, and it's an eye-opener. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting us tonight, and actually Tobin and I must be on the same brainwave length because I also want to answer question number 6 as part of my closing statements. However, he answered question number 6 on the environment, and I want to answer question number 6 on mental health and addictions because I do think that is the most pressing issue we are facing as a community. And so the question was, what should be the next step for the new mayor in addressing the problem? And one thing that I haven't heard throughout the campaign is what I've pledged to do, what I haven't heard it from my fellow candidates up here. I've pledged to put municipal dollars into a safe consumption site. That means the city will put city money into the establishment of a safe consumption site, whether that's a retrofit of a building or a purchase of a building, and along with the retrofit of it. The province will only fund a safe consumption site when it is ready to be operational. So to get a building to the point where it is operational, the municipality has to be at the table and put money into it. And that's what I have committed to doing. If elected, it will be the number one priority of my term if I am elected on October 24th. So I wanted to touch on that issue specifically because I do think that was one of the most important questions that you had on the docket for this evening. So with respect to my general plan forward, I've presented the plan. I have faith in the plan. We need growth and we need investment in our community, but we also need to do it in a managed and prudent way. I plan to push for progress, but I always plan to focus on the cost of getting us there. I appreciate your time and encourage you to review my platform and compare it with the approach of my fellow candidates. And I hope to earn your vote on October 24th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. First, I wanted to thank the candidates for running, for their leadership, to want to represent us and fight for this community on everyone's behalf. That's very courageous. I want to thank our students for the questions and and ask them to continue to be involved in the democratic process. I wanted to thank the audience for being here and I will remember Shirley Roach, who always taught me here that we should listen first. Listen, she used to say they have 2 years. And we need to listen, and everybody was listening, looking for substance, and continue to be involved. We have a wonderful democratic process. If you, one day want to run. And I want to give some, we're building here, that our students want to be involved in this community and university, so all our candidates are getting a School of the Life Science and the Environment t-shirt and some other things. And thank you all for coming out, and to those who are at home, thank you for listening and for being here. So thank you very much, and to my team for Algoma, they're amazing in putting it together. Oh yes, there's a parking code. What is the parking code? It's right over there. So if you need a parking code, please go over there, and Michelle will be glad to help you. Thank you very much.
Bikes don't need parking code. I love that.
The biggest one.